All right, Jay, welcome to the show, my man. So I got you on basically because you and I came across paths recently, and I feel we kind of became fast friends, man. I think fellow vet, high performer, hard charger, and it's something that I don't know. It seemed like we tried to connect up real quick, like outside of where we met, and you know. Fellow veteran, Army, 23 years of service. Thank you for your service. Jesus, long time, 2 decades.
An honor. Thank you.
Yeah. And so, do it justice, man. Tell us a little bit about yourself and where you come from.
Yeah. So my name is Jay Tiegs. I'm a certified high performance coach. I'm still on active duty, United States Army. I've been in the Army for 25 years. I guess the long way around in my life, I came from a broken home. I joined the military, enlisted. I served approximately 13 years as a combat engineer. We say in the Army, when you cross over from enlisted to the officer side, you join the dark side. And so I did that, and I'm a captain promotable. I'll be making major, and then I've decided to go ahead and call it, very bittersweet, but I'm going to go ahead and end this part of my life and transition into coaching and consulting. And I know that's where we met as a certified high performance coaches, that network. I'm an endurance athlete. I am a father, single father of triplet teenage daughters. And, I just want to inspire and help people live a better life. And that's the down and dirty of who I am and what I do. Help people take command of their life so they can live a better life and add value to the world.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what I think, what I love referring to guys like you, like we're just soldiers in the good fight, right? That it just, there's so much good that we've got to put out there to help. There's so much negativity out there, right? And we've got to get out there and like pump some of this good and well to be stuff out there for people to kind of consume and know, like, hey man, it's not all doom and gloom out there. You can pick yourself up, you can take yourself where you want to go. And,
Absolutely.
and you hit it. It's a lot of leadership, right? One of the things that I know, like, what are some of the things that you are teaching? I saw you were in two commanded two units around leadership development.
Yeah, so I had the honor and privilege of commanding the Engineer Basic Officer Leadership course. So I am been part of the Corps of Engineers my entire life in the Army, and tremendous honor to be selected to be the Engineer Basic Officer Leadership Commander. Every commissioned officer who is branched engineer goes through this course. It's almost like their advanced individual training or their basic training, essentially. And we're baselining them. They've gotten basic leadership principles from West Point, OCS, or ROTC. But what we're doing is we're training them to be engineer leaders. And the challenge with being a Corps of Engineer officer is the breadth of knowledge that you have to learn. You have to learn, combat tactics. You have to learn, basics in general engineering, both vertical and horizontal. So that's like, constructing a building from the ground up, or the dirt work, and they're fundamentally different. And the geospatial aspect. What we as engineers we're the subject matter experts in mapping and understanding the terrain, and we help the maneuver commanders shape maneuver, through those very aspects of engineering. So we're taking these officers and baselining them in a very short amount of time to become agile, confident leaders, because when they leave the course, at the time of this recording, we're still doing deployments to Afghanistan's winding down, but when I was in command, we were still sending people to Afghanistan and Iraq. They're going to hit the ground, receive this platoon of 40 soldiers, and a lot of them deployed right away. So it was incumbent upon us to train them as quickly as we could. And a lot of these, they're 22 years old. A majority of them, they're very young. And so we got really good at developing their leadership ability and focusing on being confident. There was a lot of there's the breadth of knowledge is there, and you can learn a lot of these guys are very book smart. But what I wanted to instill in them is to be confident in themselves, because they're going to have to lead and plan. But you can create the best plan in the world, but if you can't deliver and articulate yourself confidently to these enlisted that soldiers that have been in the Army, probably have multiple deployments under their belt, these seasoned non-commissioned officers, they're not going to follow the plan, and the plan's going to go to hell in a handbag, and people are going to get hurt or killed. That was one of my getting my instructors and cadre, like, how can we develop grit and confidence and resiliency in these young officers?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And, how does do hard things, right? When it comes to that, instilling some grit, confidence, do hard things, it's your podcast, it's your mantra, why is that so important to you?
Yeah, so at a very early age, if we can go back in time, I came from a broken home. I'm first generation American. I guess the long and short of it, I was basically in a broken home in an adopted family that there's a lot of physical and emotional abuse. And at a very early age, there was something in me. I had a drive that I just knew I needed to get out of this situation, and there was something better. Didn't know how I was going to do it, but I knew that there was a way. And it kind of started off with this. I was a paper boy. I lived in a town called Clarksville, Missouri. It's about an hour north of St. Louis. Missouri town's the highest point on the Mississippi River. And at like 12 years old, I started shucking newspapers. I rode my bike every day after school, 6 days a week. And here in the Midwest, we get, hot weather, we get extreme cold weather. But I just I worked, and I knew that if I just leaned in on this, I wouldn't be home. I'd have some pocket change to buy my school clothes or Nintendo game. I started mowing yards, and that was tough to do it as a 12-year-old. Like, we've got 12-year-olds now. Like, my kids are 13, and we're like still setting up play dates. We didn't have that. You'd leave in the morning, and when the lights came on in the evening, the street lamps, that's when you knew it was time to come home and check in. The world is a different place now. But I learned that I just kind of felt like by working and leaning in and doing these things, I didn't have like parents that were supporting me or like, you need to get out there. I did this on my own because I knew that there was something to this work ethic and this discipline that was going to lead to a better life. And what it ultimately led me to do, I ultimately met my cross country coach who invited me out to cross country practice. I got into running, and my fitness from riding my bike up this hill every day, 6 days a week, really enabled me to be a good runner. And so when I joined the team for the first time in my life, I had a coach, someone that forced me to kind of raise my ambition, who believed in me, who taught me some basic foundational things, and it motivated me to get my grades up and be a part of a team. We had a really good cross country team, and that kept me focused on my I knew that joining the military was going to be my way out of this situation. And so all of those things I developed, continually to develop grit and discipline by running, because cross country running and track is hard. Running is not, a lot of people don't like to run. It's a
Absolutely.
very difficult, it requires discipline to do it and to do it well. And all of those things translated well into the military, and the military enabled me to like close the earlier chapter of my life, which was a very tumultuous upbringing. And
And
so to this day, like, I still apply those principles to my life because they've been my handrail of success, leaning on these difficult self-imposed struggles, having meaningful pursuit. And so I do this now, like I'm doing 75 Hard, which is a program that's designed to develop discipline and grit. I'm training for a 140-mile bike gravel race. And I do these events. I put myself in these situations because it bleeds over into the unknown struggles that are going to come in my life. And they keep me balanced and centered.
absolutely, absolutely. And some of those struggles. So, in the difficulties of your childhood, like what are some lessons that kind of burned into that time, right? So you came out of that, you learned some lessons, transition. What are some things that you just kind of learned at that era of your life that are still serving you today?
One of the lessons learned. Well, one, leaning in on doing difficult and challenging things. The importance of having a coach and a mentor, because that really, having that interaction with my cross country coach, I didn't know that I could make it, out of, I didn't, it could have been very easily for me to get caught up into drugs and alcohol. And statistically, I should not have made it out of the situation that I was in. So looking back, having the importance of having a coach and a mentor, and someone to believe in, and being part of a team to help you raise your ambition is incredibly important. You need to be running with people that are a little bit better than you and have a vision that makes you a little bit uncomfortable, because you're gonna rise up to that level. And I've seen that throughout my military career as well. And so that's one of the big things. Also, having not having a father in my life, I was very reluctant to have kids, and I was blessed with triplet 13-year-old daughters. And what I learned is by seeing things, you can learn a lot of life lessons by seeing things that are not right. Because that's I didn't have a role model to follow, but I did know how I felt through absence and all of the emotional and physical abuse, and
Right.
I knew that those things were bad. And so, what would I want in a father for my? And I really thought about that. What would I want my father to be like? And I try to emulate that and be that to the best of my ability. I fall short, but it's a far cry from what I had.
Absolutely, right. And that's the thing I think, most people need to hear, right? There's this, I don't know, maybe it's because of the social area, the era, this information age where everyone's just portraying perfection, perfection, perfection. And it's just not real, right? I mean, you see everyone gets online and they just feel, some people feel terrible about their own situations, and you always got to remember, like, that's the highlight reel. That's the highlight reel. You don't know what's going on behind the scenes, and so on. And but people see that stuff and they feel this imperfection, and now and it gets in their head. And I think that's important that you say, right, we're all, right, working on ourselves, on our lives, and period. None of us have this thing perfect, and it's an example of, right, you find people that set a good example. I think setting an example is the most powerful leadership trait, right? Like, set the example. I mean, it's in the Marine Corps leadership principles. I learned it, shortly after my time on the Yellow Footprints myself. But that's the one that just always stuck to me, because it's probably, what I've seen, one of the most powerful ones. And it's both ways, right? It's someone setting a good example, and then someone setting a poor example, so that you can learn what not to do, right? It's that is just as equally powerful, right? I think, so you seeing what type of father not to be, right, has served you.
And I've seen that with leaders. I've had really good leaders to emulate, and I've had really toxic leaders that I was like, oh, that made me feel bad. I'm not going to do that to my people. So it goes both ways. And I think it's important to know. You mentioned it a minute ago. So often we're all comparing ourselves to everyone's highlight reel on social media. And as I coach people and as I talk to people both in the military and coaching clients, and so many people struggle with that. They fear that they're just not measuring up to everyone else, and it rattles their confidence. They feel a lot of judgment, like a lot of negative emotions. And what I've learned is that every single person on this earth has a challenge of some kind, or a struggle, or a trauma, or something that they're dealing with of some kind, of some kind. And everyone has that. And I think that's, whether you believe in God or the universe, I think that's part of the human dynamics, that we're given these challenges to overcome. And if you go on social media, you think it's a perfect world. And I think it's why people feel so unsettled right now. And I would just have people just be cautious of comparing yourself and contrasting with those that are on social media, because no one, even as I work with, coaches, high caliber coaches who appear to have it all together, deep down, I've learned that they don't. There's a skeleton in the closet, or they have their thing that they're dealing with. So you're not alone.
Right.
Whatever it is that you're going through, someone out there, some of you probably know, they probably doesn't appear like they're going through it, is going through it.
Yeah, and I think, in your personal circle, right? Sometimes just stuff just hits you, and you find out what, maybe it's friends, and you go, all of a sudden, out of the blue, it's like, me and Bob are getting a divorce. It's like, what? What do you mean? I just saw your pictures on vacation last week. It's that type of stuff. But you're right. You never know what's going on. And I think, one of the big lessons that I've had to mature into in learning that is, no, you never know what someone's going through, right? And just always being empathetic to just who you're dealing with, period, right? You run into these characters that just run around. It's like the world evolves around them, right? And they just treat people as such. And in learning that lesson, right, that everyone's dealing with their crap, you just, when you get hit with that and whatever. So, that's one thing I try to do, just, and improve just this is for me, right? To just know that when I'm smiling at the, checkout gal or whatever, and asking how their day's going, and treat them, because you never know. And I would rather err on the side of they're having a bad day and I have opportunity to bring a smile into it or something, than the contrary, right? It's just a good way that serves you well. I don't know. That's just me.
Absolutely. You never know what people are going through. And kind of going back on that, and I don't know if you want to get to that in this part of the podcast, but I felt for many years that I was playing a character. I was hiding a lot of my own deep depression and my own demons from a broken childhood to army deployment things. And, when you make to a certain rank in the military, you're expected to perform at a very high level, and you've got them role modeled away. And I grew up in a culture where, seeking help early on in the military was frowned upon, and that was ingrained in me. And the suicide rate in the military for those that are currently serving, and veterans, and even our society as a whole, uh, is there's a lot of people playing characters.
Sure.
And I was there. I have done that. I've played that character, and I had got to that point where I wanted to end it all. And had I done that, I know it would have taken everyone by surprise. But I was there. I had those thoughts, but I chose, because of my daughters, that's the easy way out. And I can't do that. And having experienced suicide from other service members that I had served with, and even a family member, I tell people this all the time. I can compartmentalize a car accident, as tragic as it is, or someone dying of disease, or someone dying in combat, but a suicide, especially one that you didn't pick up on the signals, like you got blindsided by it, is absolutely horrendous. Like,
Absolutely.
it's just amplified tenfold because it's so unnecessary. And I knew when I got to that point that, hey, I needed to seek some help, and it took a lot of courage for me, and a lot of to deal with that. And it had a lot of work that had to be done. But there's so many people out there that are playing characters that are not dealing with their demons.
And someone out there listening to this that's in that dark place, right? Coming from your experience, seeing the light on the other side of that darkness, let's say, striving for what would you tell that person? What do they need to know about, they're afraid what someone might think, they're just, they don't think there's a solution. What do you tell someone like that from your experience? What do you think might have helped you, or did help you maybe, to crack that code?
I personally just got to a point, like, my number one responsibility, the greatest leadership role that I have outside of the military, is my daughters, right?
Right.
And I've got to lead by example there. And I knew that my frame of thinking wasn't right. And what I had learned, and I had talked to, at this point, there had been other leaders in my life that that dynamic of has started to chip away a little bit. And I started looking at some of the leaders that I really respected, and they were openly talking about seeking help and being vulnerable. And as I have gone through this and seen the impact and knowing how it's affecting our society, not only the organization that's near and dear to my heart, but our society as a whole, I think you want to level up as a leader as far as confidence, be more vulnerable. I think being a vulnerable leader is far more impactful, because we are all dealing with struggles. And when you can, as a leader, say that, hey, I don't know what the answer is, and I need help here, I think people see that, and I think people respect that. And since then, I've been far more open about talking about that, because I think it's important to talk about, so that people know that they're not alone. Because, like you said, the noise from social media is so loud, and it just seems like we live in this altered reality where it's just not it's not true.
Right.
And there are a lot more people struggling than we realize, and there's people taking their lives every day, and they're not dealing with their depression, and they need to. And there's therapists out there, there's organizations that can help. And I think it's, from a leadership standpoint, being vulnerable is a very courageous thing to do. And I think that if you're dealing with something, it's incumbent upon you to deal with that. You got to take care of yourself.
Yeah. And I
When you
think,
take care of yourself, you show up as a better version, a better leader for everyone else around you.
absolutely. And I think to the leaders out there, right? Back to the, know this, right? Know that you might not know what's going on in your people's life, but you should seek to know what's going on in your people's lives, right? there's the opportunity, right? If you've got weekly or some sort of routine one-on-ones with your direct reports, that you can open that door and say, hey, how's everything going? Oh yeah, well, I got here, did my job, but no. How's everything going, man? What's good? What's going on good with you? Is there anything holding you back? Just showing that you care, And I think, and you're right, man. I think in the military, there's just this. There is sometimes this ego in there, this persona that's trying to be maintained. Like I'm hard. I can't show any weakness. And look, you can be hard, but from to the leaders out there, you should know, like, because your power of influence, right? Again, your as a leader, your words have more power than right? As an influencer, your words have power, and so when you come down hard, as hey, you shouldn't have any problems, you should be tip top, you should be perfect, right? That's one, maybe not helping in those situations. You don't know what's going on, but two, having these times where you give the opportunity to your troops or your staff, direct reports, whatever, to kind of speak up, so you can seek to understand what's going on, and I think that's another, I think, powerful thing. Like, what's it? Probably some Stephen Covey or something, right? Seek first to understand, then to be understood, right? I could tell you, young, full of piss and vinegar Sergeant Walls, I didn't seek to understand anything, right? It's just bring the hammer. You bring the hammer. But as I grew up, that's 20-year-old sergeant, right? You don't know any better then. But as I matured in my own leadership, I've learned to check that, right? Somebody's late, someone's not squared away. Like, look, man, seek to understand what's going on. Don't just assume they're, I don't know if they in the military, but we call it, don't just assume they're a shitbag, right? Like, what's going on? Hey, is there anything holding you back? Why can't you be on time? Why can't you get your gear squared away? Why can't you? It may be training. It may be they need help. Again, it's just, I just can't emphasize enough. Leaders, you have so much power, and you got to wield it in the right way, because you might save someone's life, frankly, with all the suicide rate going on.
Absolutely. I always ask people, what are you excited about in life right now? You tell me something about work. I don't care about that PowerPoint presentation or that project. What are you excited about in life right now? Like, what's going on with you? Because we're more than just, cogs in the wheel showing up and pumping out work. That we have bigger aspirations than that generally. And people have lives outside of the work that they do. And I think it's incumbent upon us as leaders to know our people. So you can, when they have problems, they have issues, you can address them better and coach them through, those tough times. I know we emphasize leadership versus management in the military because leadership is a very holistic approach. It's not just the 9 to 5 activities. It's how are you doing as a person? If you're having financial issues, if you're struggling, because there's no shortage of people that are having issues in the military with the deployments and the things. It's, but so it's the total soldier concept, as I apply this to my coaching and whatnot, and I'm talking to my clients, I approach it the same way. Like, how is your life? How's things going in your life, in your world? And I think that experience from the military has enabled me to do that really well. Because the transitioning into coaching has been very seamless because of the nature of the military and the leadership development and how personal that we get. And so, yeah, I think it's important.
That said, why coaching for you, right? So you're 23 years, you're transitioning out of the military. You've earned your certified high performance coaching certification. You got clients, you've got group, you've got all these great things going on. Why that? What made you kind of pick this path?
Yeah, so going back to that dark spot in my life, I was approaching the end of my career. And you get to a certain point in your career where you're just more shuffling paperwork and information and feeling, I don't know, I just had a myriad of feelings. Marriage not going so well. I didn't know what my next chapter was going to be, what my next mission was going to be, but I knew it was coming to an end. And I felt very unsettled. And part of seeking out therapy was also personal development. I, like so many people, got caught up in negative habits, like, excessive video game playing, probably drinking a little bit too much. And I started consuming a lot of news and talk radio to a point where things that are happening in DC would just like piss me off, and I'd be like, take it out on the kids. And like, I really started to analyze, like, why am I feeling irritated? Why am I pissed off all the time? Why am I feeling this way? What are the habits, aside from therapy, of the leaders that I respected most in life, not just the military, but just in life in general? And they all read. They were well read, and I wasn't a reader. And so I started reading. I picked up a book called The Slight Edge from my Beachbody coach, Scotty Hobbs. Um, and I started reading the book, and it's about your basic habits. So I did an inventory on how I spent my time, and I committed to reading 10 pages of a personal development book because it talks about that in that book. So I'm like, I'm going to do that. I'm just going to read 10 pages every day. And, reading good books instead of listening to talk radio and arguing politics, looking at my social circle and who I'm spending time with, getting rid of the video games and doing more like endurance sports and bike riding and things like that. All of those things started to slowly, I went from like every day being a bad day to like, okay, maybe I was having a bad week. And I started having like some good days, and the bad days started dwindling down into maybe a handful of days, and then maybe a day here or there. And now it's to a point where like I have bad moments, maybe a bad day here and there, but it's not like every day was a bad day. And a lot of that had to do with personal development. So the personal development, there's like a ladder or a mountain you'd climb, right? So you start off by reading books, and that leads to podcasts, and then, mastermind groups, and then group coaching, and then one-on-one coaching. And therapy is great, but I think I really got fired up in life by coaches who forced me to raise my ambition. I started thinking back in my life, like, man, my first cross-country coach, like, he really got me fired up. And I'm like, you know what? I've been doing this in the military for a long time. I have a knack for getting people excited and motivated to do things. I want to be a coach. So I went to High Performance Academy, and Brendan Bouchard, he rolled out his coaching platform, and to me, he's among the best, right? He's the best of the best. And like, I'm going to do anything. We're going to go all in. And I was hesitant at first because I'm like, man, it's a lot of money. We're going to do this thing. We're going to check it out and do it. So I bet it all in black, and here I am. And I feel like I have found my way. Like, I found my next mission and my calling, because I can take all the principles of my life and my leadership lessons that I've learned in the military and help people take command of their life, because I think that's what people need. They just need to know that they're not alone. I think that I have a lot of like degrees and certifications and all that crap, but I think the biggest things that I bring to the table are the lessons that I've learned. I've had failed marriages. I've been to war. I've been, horrible with my finances. I've spent, horrible amounts of time on video games and crap and feeling like depressed and wanting to end it all. I know what that feels like. I've been there. So I think that I'm very qualified in so many different ways to help other people. And it just makes me happy. Like, it brings me so much joy to see someone overcome something, to teach. I was an instructor as well, and to teach a concept and see them put that to use in their life and see how it radically changes their life. Nothing brings me more joy than that. And I just want to help people to avoid the pitfalls that I fell into.
Right. So, I mean, that's the power of coaching. I mean,
yeah.
And again, it does take an ego check, but it is recognizing that you can get so far by yourself, right? And at a minimum, coaching can be perceived as outsourcing your path to the next version of you, right? You could sit down and try to figure out, what the next version of you, what you've got to do, how you can push yourself or whatever. Or you can find a coach that can push you, right? And I mean, this is new to me from a coaching perspective. I would say I've been fortunate to go through a lot, but it's only been recently that I've gotten involved with any kind of coaching or prescribed framework and stuff like that. And look, I always read books, but still at the end of the book, it's up to me, right? I've still got to change. I've still got to push. I've got no one knowing, hey, I read this book and I wanted to do this, but I haven't done it yet. No one knows that but me, right? So, but when you have a coach who's challenging the way of thinking, asking you, what is the next step? What are you trying to do? What are you having struggles with? Like, those are very overgeneralized versions of what we take clients through, right? But man, it's so thought provoking, and you just get these breakthroughs of, man, I've never thought about that, and I really should. And you just break through, or you find yourself going farther than you would have gone on your own, right? It's I think a coach brings the value of getting you out of your comfort zone as well, right? Like, because again, if it's just you, you can hide in your little comfort zone and you might push the boundaries a little bit and whatever, but that coach is going to pull you to that next level. And I think it's just, I agree. It's very powerful. And that for me personally, I had to check my ego. Like when I was just kind of like, because I never had it. I mean, I've had various influences, but never really like a coach or a mentor. And I remember at times, like you, I didn't really have a ton of involvement with my father growing up. So the military kind of served as a father figure. And I would say I was envious at times when I remember I had a sales exec or someone, and we were rode into a sales call, and he's like, "Yeah, I was talking to my mentor about this issue I'm having." I'm like, "Mentor? What do you mean you got a? What's a mentor? I thought I was your mentor. I'm your boss, you know." But I was kind of like envious, like, "Man, you've got someone you can call, and talk to about crap you're going through." So, what
Yeah.
you were going to say?
Life coach, and I still, when I hear life coach, it sounds so cheesy, right? It sounds cheesy. And I think for the longest time I heard of life coaching, like that's a bunch of crap. That's cheesy, right? Uh, but as I've gotten into this and I've seen the power of it, it's just like a sports coach, right? We all associate coaches with sports. Having that vantage point and previous experiences, the coach is like, hey, shortstop, move to the right 3 feet. You're going to, because he understands it's just a different perspective.
Absolutely, yeah,
And that's why it's just like having a sports coach in your life. And I remember being at High Performance Academy, and Brendan's like, "Hey, all my certified high performance coaches, stand up." And I this is how short sighted I was, and probably speaks to my ignorance a little bit. But I remember seeing these younger, like 20-year-old guys standing up, and I'm like, "What life experiences does he have that he's going to help me out?" Look at I've been to war, ego, right? And when I went to the certification, because every time we do certification, they bring back the other coaches to recertify. That's how ignorant I was. It's not about the individual. Yes, everyone has life experiences, but it's also about the process and the
yep,
curriculum. That's why I think high performance coaching is so powerful, because we're connected with so many other coaches, and the curriculum itself and the tough questioning. Every session that I've been through, there's always an aha moment, even with the younger guys who I initially, my ego's like, you know what? I've done so much more than this kid. And what I learned, that's my own ego in the way. And I still get an aha moment, and he's challenging me, right?
right,
Because in our line of coaching, and we're bold. We call people out on their bullshit, and we really get in there to force people to raise their ambition. And I noticed that about especially the military coaches, we probably do that. It definitely stands out. We're a little bit more energetic. We're quicker to call people out of their bullshit, but all the coaches in our network do that. And so that was my own ignorance and my own ego feeding that. But the power of coaching is absolutely incredible. And like you said, you can read a book and a podcast, but when you get connected with other people on the same journey, like in a group coaching environment, or you have a coach that you're dealing with directly, man, it really does move the needle in your life. And had I known about the power of this, I would have gotten a coach way earlier in life. I just didn't know. And
right.
there's not that many coaches out there in comparison to the population that is here. So I think the more people that are engaged with coaching, it can really help a lot of people out,
Yeah, and I
which is
think
why I want to be one. Why I'm here
yeah,
and doing
I,
this.
I mean, I call it indirect leadership, right?
Yeah,
You're not directly in charge of these people, right? We'll go military terms. You're not directly in charge of them, but you are indirectly leading them through, a coaching platform, right? You're challenging them. You're challenging them. You're challenging them to find their potential and live up to it, right? And you're right. The breakthroughs, because you hit the word, right? It's perspective. You got the coach on the sideline that sees what you're doing wrong and might check you, in a respectful way, right? Like it's just,
yeah,
that was, I remember going through the certification. You were in one of those group things. And that was one of my concerns, right? I was like, I got a client, right? Hypothetically, I got a client. How do I, how do you push them, right? And you were the first one. Like I call them on their bullshit. I was like,
yeah,
all right, well there we go. And
yeah,
but yeah, I knew you were military at that point, so I was like, okay, well here's a hard charger. So I know why he would say that, right? Call them on their bullshit. But the whole program was that you're paid to push, you're paid to push, you're paid to
yeah,
push,
yeah.
and go. You were saying, Jay?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
No,
Um,
I love that aspect of it because I think that's what makes the coaching so powerful is being able to have someone that's going to call you out because you can go out with your friends and bend their ear and they might be like, well, it's okay. You got this going for you, blah, blah, blah. Now, sometimes you need to hear it like, no, you're screwing up. This is where you're screwing up. How can we get over this and move on from this? And that's what I love about the power of coaching. It's like having that someone to come in your life like, no, man, you're screwing up. Especially like for me as a leader in the military where, I'm higher up. I've got my bosses. It gets a little lonely at the top.
yeah.
So having that, someone to come in and be like, no, man, you need to, you really need to take a look at this because a lot of people are doing just that. They're trying to appease the boss and so that's why the coaching is really good. Call you out on your bullshit because everyone's got bullshit they're dealing with or screwing up somewhere or
Well,
they
that's
can
right.
improve somewhere.
Man, I made so many fast friends because I think going through the training and certification because you're right. When you're driven, right, it can be a lonely feeling because not a lot of look, we are so far as in humanity, right? We're the wealthiest we've ever been in the history of humans that we know. Things come so easy. So I feel there's driven people out there, but it seems like they're getting sparingly, right? Like we're just everything's just so easy attainable. So these comfort zones are pretty large that people find themselves in. So if you're striving, right, to push yourself, go do these long runs, go do these crazy things, that you hit it. It's a bit lonely, right? Like
Yeah.
there's not a lot of people that are thinking like that. So when you find them, you're like, oh man, what's your name? You just kind of start hooking up with them because
Yeah.
it is lonely, and a coach kind of brings that dynamic that you can get into.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
With regard to that, and I think a good point to hit on because you talked a little bit about therapy, and we've talked a little bit about coaching, and coaching is not therapy, right? It's the thing about it for listeners who haven't experienced coaching per se, like therapy is, look, if you need therapy, you got stuff to work out, hey, go do that. The difference with coaching, however, is coaching is very future oriented, right? We're not going to dig into an analysis of your past and why you're still dreaming about your girlfriend that broke up with you in high school and whatever's still plaguing you, right? We're going to talk about the new you, right? That future you, that best version of you, right? Is that how do you see it?
Yeah, absolutely. It's like going, therapists go back and unlock, they take their training to deal with the traumas of the past so you can unlock what happened in the past so you can function better in the present and hopefully have a brighter future. I think we as coaches, we take the future and bring it into now. Like, how can we get to where you want to go? You know, I don't know why daddy didn't love you. I got a good therapist. You can go over there and figure that out. But what are we going to do now? What's that got to, let's get you to where you truly want to be. How can you become more productive? How can you get your energy level up? How
Yeah.
can you gain more influence and be, take more bold action so you can live the life that you were designed to live and that you truly want to live and to be happier, right? And some of that may require, therapy work. And, when we get to that point, I always like, hey, you may want to go unpack that. I'm not able or qualified to deal with that. But here's what we can do. Let's work on these goals together. And how can we get to that end? And so there is a big difference in that. And I think it's important for people to know that.
It really is. Look there. It's something too. Like therapy or not, whatever. Yes, if you got stuff to unpack, great, go get a therapist. But like just dwelling on the past, right? Like if you're spending energy focused on the past, guess where that energy is not going, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
It's not going towards the future, and that's where your best bet is, man. Like all that time you spend, heart aching about age old things, right? And look,
Yeah.
we're all perfectly human. We have all done it.
Yeah.
We all do it, but uh, you know, checking yourself to say, hey, man, turn the page, yeah, she broke
Absolutely.
my heart or I screwed up, right? And
Yeah.
yeah, we all screw up. What are we going to do now? That's what matters. So.
And I joke about the daddy didn't love anything, but it's true. Everyone has something that they probably need to go back and unpack of some kind, and that's what therapists are trained to do. And I think for me, it's been incredibly powerful to have a coach and a therapist. I definitely look forward to my coaching with sessions with my coach more than my therapist, because the therapist, we always go back to this. Oh man, we're wading through stuff. I had my therapy
Yeah.
session yesterday.
Right.
And we're wading through stuff, from Iraq, and it just brings out like so many bad memories, right?
Sure.
But we're unlocking things so I can function better and not go back to that dark place again. So that's why that work is important.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think, if there's something that you need to unlock, definitely go invest the time and effort in a therapist. And, high performance coaching isn't for everyone, but I think that a lot of people can definitely benefit from it if they get an
Absolutely.
opportunity, chance.
So something that certainly as a parent that rung out to me, right? Raising triplets. I mean, raising triplets. what the heck?
Yeah.
How do you survive that? What's the how do you do it?
Yeah, that's and I'm single parent of triplets, so I get them every other week. We'd gotten divorced about with their mom like a year and a half ago. We're very cordial, but it's been a challenge. Like not knowing. I remember the day that I found out we were having triplets. I was a recruiter at the time. I left I was at high school with Buddy, and I went to the where they do the ultrasound, and I met my ex-wife there, and I remember, she was there, I was there. I saw the computer screen. Never saw the drill before, but I knew, I've seen people with their photos, so I kind of saw that image up on the screen. But I remember seeing like scrolling of some kind, like the image was kind of scrolled over. I'm like, okay, it's like, okay, noted. And then he's like, okay, here's your daughter, and here's your daughter's sister. And so he scrolls over one, and he goes over one more, and like, oh, and by the way, here's the third one. And we had issues before with like miscarriage. So the immediate thought was like, we look at each other like, oh, this isn't going to end well. Cause my ex had an autoimmune disease. And so there's some complications. And I remember like thinking like, okay, well, if it does come to fruition, then what? And I remember I was like in shock. Like I was like white as a ghost. I remember going back to work to meet up with my buddy. And he's like, man, what's going on with you? And I was just kind of like in a dazed stupor, like my life is over, like how I envisioned it. I didn't want to have kids. I was like going to be very selfish. I didn't know, I didn't have a father, and but they've been the greatest blessing. I've learned so much from them. I got really good with time management because out of necessity, I had to get really good with time management. And the early years were tough, and then we went through like ages 3 to 10. And now they just turned 13, and now we're hitting this hormones and the teenage years, and it's been a real challenge. I was talking to somebody this morning about this. I get frustrated because I'm like, at work, I'm very influential. I'm a coach. I have, I'm influential with my podcast and social media. I can influence so many people to do great things, right? But I can't influence my daughter to make her bed or put the dishes away without attitude, And it's like, it's the most difficult leadership challenge that I've ever had, but I love them tremendously. And I learned so much about myself. So all of these principles and habits that I've learned from High Performance Academy about managing my day and influence and courage, courage. I had to go buy maxi pads at the store not too long ago. And I took a photo of it because I was laughing about it. Like, oh my God, I got all these messages like, oh my God, my husband would never have the courage to go do that. I'm like, well, this is life, right?
Right.
So all of those things are they're fun, but every day is it's a struggle, at least lately anyway.
So time management key. What's some other keys to
energy,
success?
getting the energy up, because not only do I gotta get up and go to work, I gotta get them to soccer practice and do all of these things, and I gotta role model the way.
Right.
Applying influence, in the influence model, right? We talk about there's like 3 things, right? You gotta acknowledge someone, you gotta understand their ambition, you got to have effect to influence someone. Having that model enables me to like, okay, how do I acknowledge the struggles that they have? I've never been a 13-year-old teenage girl, but here we are in COVID. They got divorced. There's divorce involved. There's like all these things, and truly trying to understand them so I can influence them better, right? And then their ambition, like they're all completely different human beings. My one daughter is really into what's it called? They're called mangas. They're like it's like a Japanese fiction novels, like Japanimation. I don't know if that's a proper term.
Sure.
She's really into that, and I don't understand it at all. It's so out of my wheelhouse, but she loves it, and she's drawing, and she's really good at it. So trying to understand and stoke that ambition, and trying to encourage them. And what I've learned is that although I had a perception of what I wanted them to be, I wanted them to be like track runners and cross country runners, and they're going to join the military and be just like dad. They're their own human being. And I have very limited, there's that nature versus nurture. Nature's powerful. And that nurture is what I've learned is a very small equation of that. But having some of these principles enables me to show up better, I think, and get through this very difficult leadership challenge that I have in my life.
But you got to get through it, right? There's no way.
Yeah.
It's the only way through it is through it, right? That's awesome.
Absolutely. So every day is a new adventure and a challenge, but all of these things, I think it enables me, because I didn't have that father figure growing up, but understanding these principles give me a handrail. Like, how do I deal with this? And because it's different. I can go to work and like, hey, I need this done, but people are up and just doing it, right? Here, not in my house. It takes a little bit more encouraging and
ask a few times.
Yeah.
I have had said in my house, right? Like, what is discipline? Discipline is instant willing obedience to all orders. You gotta, where's your discipline? But man, no, you're right. Kids are just another thing, but they go to school, right? They go to school and the teachers are like, man, they listen, they do great. They give you like this other kid, like you don't, maybe you don't even know exists. You're like, what? My son, he does that, and he helps other kids, and he does what you tell him. Like, what are we doing here? So
there's this like dynamic, when it's your significant other or your kids, it's a different dynamic. Because I've learned this even like coaching. I've coached couples. I've coached individually, and the one couple will be trying to influence the other to do something. We'll have a session, and I get them to commit to doing that. Oh, the huge breakthrough! Like, well, and I talked to the other guy. I've been trying to get him to do that for years. Like in one session, and you get him to do this. What is that? It's that same dynamic when it's your significant other or it's your kids. It's just you need that outside influence to. I don't know what it is. Maybe too much time. I don't know what it is. Maybe just that automatic. I want to defy you kind of thing.
Yeah, there's a lot there. There's a lot there. So you mentioned energy. How do you keep the energy up?
Oh, so what I have done, I've really been in tune with my energy by doing 75 Hard. If you're not familiar with 75 Hard, it's a 75-day discipline challenge, 5 simple tasks. One task, you got to work out twice a day, one being outside, 45 minutes each. Choosing a diet, sticking with it, no cheating, no alcohol, reading 10 pages of a book, taking a daily photo, and drinking a gallon of water. By doing that consistently, the drinking of the water, eating healthy, I like alcohol. And what I've realized is that alcohol really does, it affects it amplifies the depressive moments that I have.
Sure.
And it brings my energy down. The workouts, like all of those things, those daily disciplined habits, man, when I'm on program, I really feel it. What I love about 75 Hard is to choose your own adventure. You can do whatever it is that you want to do. You just got to do those 5 things. But when I'm on, because the last month I'd been off and I was on vacation last week, my energy level really tanked. And I'm back on it this week. Automatically, my energy level on a scale of 1 to 10 is probably at an 8, where like last week it was probably like at a 5. And so your body is a power plant. So by, fine tuning it and taking care of it like an engine, you need coolant, you got to put oil in it, all those things really amplify your energy. And it makes you feel like when you're not feeling good, you're low on energy, you're cranky, right? And you're not getting as much done, and then you get frustrated. And, but when you're energetic, you feel better, your attitude is up, you can get more things done, which makes you feel good too. So I think the energy level is so incredibly important. And I'm 43 now, and I want to be a super ager. And I know that I've got to eat healthy and I've got to exercise. And I've seen people that are my age, and I'm like, they can't barely get out and throw a football with their kid, and it makes me sad. And I'm seeing the obesity problem in our country. And I'm like, but if you just don't quit, you can age well and be very energetic. Out in Oregon, I met up with my friend's grandmother who's 74. She hikes like every day, and she's training for an El Camino, which is like a 500-mile hike across Spain. She's 74. She's going to
74.
fly out this summer by herself and go do this El Camino 500-mile trek across Spain. And I'm like, I want to be you when I grow up, like she's retired. And I asked her what the key was. Really good friendships, taking care of your body, and eating healthy and exercising. That's how she keeps her energy up. So I just keep doing those things. That's how I want to live my life.
It's the only vessel you got, right? Like,
absolutely.
and look,
Absolutely.
Jay, how old are you?
I'm 43.
You're 43, and you've what's the hardest challenge you've done? Like recently, like over the past few years, like what are you doing?
So I would think, I think, so I'm always involved in some kind of race or something that's going to push my mind and my body. So the most difficult challenges that I've done, I think the MR 340, the Missouri River 340,
Which is what is
mentally, that is it's a canoe kayak race on the Missouri River. It's the longest nonstop kayak canoe race in the world. It's in the top National Geographic top 100 adventures. It's a race from Kansas City to St. Louis. You have 88 hours to get there. I've done it solo and in a canoe with a partner. And it's just grueling because it's usually in the summer. You're exposed to the elements. You're basically going 24 hours a day. I think the first time that I did it, you can sleep along the way, but you have 88 hours. And if there's a boat that's going really slow, and if he passes you, you're out of the race. When I did it with a partner, we did it in 55 hours, got fifth place. We only slept maybe an hour and 45 minutes during that time. And you're burning so many calories. You're out there in the elements. Mentally, that was just grueling. I've also done the Dirty Kansas 200, which is a 200-mile bike race, single day bike race.
And the Missouri 340, that's 340 miles
of canoeing, kayaking.
Right, yeah,
Yep.
Right. So, and you're 43 years old, and you've got more coming up this year, right? You've got what's ahead of you.
Yeah, I'm doing the STB GRVL Steamboat Gravel. And it's a 140-mile race up in Steamboat Springs, Colorado.
On foot, bike?
I've done a 200-mile bike race before, but I've never done it at elevation. So
Sure.
The elevation is going to make it a challenge. So that's what I'm currently training for and working on. I'm also going to do a 50K later in the year run.
50K.
But these things are just to have something to train for. I think as I've coached people in the health and wellness space, and a lot of people take this mindset of, I'm going to do this exercise and lose 20 pounds, or I want to get in a certain size, pant or something like that, dress size. But I think what people need to do, if you want that to be sustaining, like you need to embody the mindset of something. That's why like the CrossFit community is so powerful. It's because it's like, I'm a CrossFitter. I'm not personally a CrossFitter, but when you have that mindset and that culture, and you become part of that, you start to think and act, and you're around a community of people. I'm a runner and I'm an endurance athlete. So I'm around, that's what I do. So when I have to work out, it's to make my performance better for that particular event. And I think when you adopt that mindset, I'm a softball player, I'm a soccer player, and you can do these things well into, as you age. I think it makes it less daunting. And I think that's what people need to do is find something, become an athlete, and train like an athlete. Even if you're an amateur athlete, take that mindset.
Yeah, I mean, you're talking about identity, right? And
Yeah.
And let's bring it full circle, right? We started talking about this identity crisis of comparing yourself to the perfection other people put forth, and you really don't want to compare yourself to someone else's persona, that they're putting out there. You want to come up with your ideal, right? That's why clarity is so important, and being the best version of you is bring clarity to what's the best version of you? What do they look like? How would they treat this situation? What would they be doing today? Right? What would right? Like that's you. And you have all the power in the world to be that identity, right? Like, and the beauty of it is today, you got all this bad coming out technology, but the good of it is you can find people like you, who, like you said, there's a community out there. Go build a new circle that aligns with that best version of you, right? Like, so, and you've got your community, through the 75 hard stuff. How's that brought value to you?
Yeah, so this just started last year. One of my friends who's a master sergeant challenged me to 75 hard, and I'd like, no, you can't do that. Sounds too hard. You can't do 2 workouts a day. That was just me. And then I remember I was texting him because he posted it out there. I was like talking trash to him on Facebook. I was kind of a negative mindset. And I was in this room at building 470 on post. There's no reason that he would be there or I should be there together. But I walked out and I immediately saw him. Like, okay, well, I guess that's, thank you, God. I guess that's the universe telling me I need to do this challenge now because I can't resist a good challenge. And so we did it together, a small group of us, and had great success with it. Completely gave me so much clarity because it really, to do this challenge every day for 75 days, you really focus on doing the 5 critical tasks and cutting out the BS so you can get these things done. Because if you miss one thing, you got to start over. We really want to get it done, and we're talking smack to each other, having that community of accountability. And then people saw how much we had changed physically and mentally. And then so we started a group. And then right now we've got like 215 people in this very positive group. And we've got new challengers starting all the time. So it's really cool to have a positive community on Facebook. I open up my Facebook and it's people getting after it. I got my do hard things cowbell here. So when someone like does something good, I'll go in the group and just kind of ring my cowbell. Awesome. And just cheer them on. We have like group calls, like every Saturday morning, we'll do a group team call and just be around positive people that want to be better and who want to level up. And I think, your connections, who you hang out with, very powerful.
Absolutely.
And so this little challenge has morphed into like a community. And at the same time, like it started with the coaching and then I started the podcast and now we've got like a group around this. And I've already had some kind of a following on Facebook, but I was just doing it more for my own self, really selfishly trying to connect with other positive people. But now we're like, creating like a legit community around it, which is really cool.
Absolutely. No, that is cool. And your circle's powerful, man. Again, that's that influence, that where you put
Absolutely.
yourself and who you put yourself around. Or you say you can run with the turkeys or you can fly with the eagles, they say, and that is true. True little cliche for you.
And I knew like when I saw you at like coaching certification, I'm like, okay, this guy, he's my people. I gotta navigate. So I reached out to you and like, here we are doing podcasts together and connecting. And it's been awesome because we have a lot of commonality, we're on the same mission and there's a lot of similarities that we have. So I appreciate, our ability to connect.
Yeah, man. No, and I was flattered that, when you were like, hey man, let's hook up and collaborate, whatever. And I was like, yeah, man, definitely. And yes, right. I want to, like say, be another soldier in this good fight, man. And we got to band together and go help, combat all this noise, all this negativity that's out there. That's, people are, it's industrialized, it's commercialized, right? You mentioned the media, right? Everyone just has to know. The media is a business, the business of attention, and they're putting that drama out there to get your attention, to get viewership so that they can get their advertising rates up, right? Like, when you start to unlock how these things work, how some of these negative influences that drive us crazy and make us mad, on what's happening on some island somewhere far away that you never will go and would have never otherwise known or whatever. And you just, again, back to energy, you dump all this energy into this noise. It's just noise.
When you wake up in the morning and your first post is about the president or the speaker of the house, that's just not a good mental space to be in. That's not how you should start your day, right? I was there at one point in my life. I got really wrapped up into that stuff. And there's a lot of people that are. And I'm just, if that's you, if you're listening and that's you, I'm telling you, you really have got to figure out a way to detach from that white noise, and you will start to feel so much better when you do.
Immediately.
And it's all designed, and it's gotten even more powerful and more addictive.
Immediately. Look, I'm a quick tip. I'm gonna tell everyone. My Facebook, I unfollowed everyone. I didn't unfriend no one, but I unfollowed everyone. And it started with whenever I saw someone post some of this kind of noise out there, and I would see it and I would go, man, I really wish I didn't know that about you. Like, I wish you hadn't done that, man. Because I had, you know what I mean? Like, I'm not saying I judge anyone, but I'm just saying, like, back to what we're saying, like the circle of influence is important. I know that. I've learned that. So when I see people like make these big long rants and go tribal, let's say, look, guys, there's 10% far left, 10% far right. The other 80% of Americans are ideally all looking for the same thing: life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Like the noise and the media and all this stuff, it's just drama. And when people get caught up with it, like what I started was Facebook has a feature, snooze for 30 days. Boom, snooze. And then realized I was like snoozing everyone, especially 2020. I'm snoozing everyone. And then I said, you know what? I'm going to unfollow everyone. And when I want to see what's going on with Johnny or whoever, Marine Corps, I'm going to go pull their name up and I'm going to look at them, send them a message, right? But I cut that machine off too, and just like cutting the media off. And now I only follow like that comes in my feed, those influences that I want to hear about, that I know is going to bring value, that's not going to be caught up in all this noise. And I highly encourage people, man, like save yourself, turn it off.
I get that Time Hop app. So I'll go back and I'll see stuff from 10 years ago, and I'm embarrassed with what I used to post. I'd be doing that, first thing in the morning, talking about so-and-so. But about, 6 years ago, when I started to transition my mindset, I started using it to journal my thoughts. People are like, you need to journal, you need to write things. I don't like to write things down, but I would use my social media and just, if I had a thought or I got a nugget from that, what I read in the morning, I wouldn't scroll social media, but I would just journal my thoughts and then just forget it. And what would happen over time is like people would start to appreciate it. And I started connecting with other people that would comment on it. And I really started to reach people. That's now elevated to like, I'm creating content. I'm still doing that regularly. Now I've got a couple little communities that I can go into that I've created, that are all like positive spaces. But I use my social media for things that I learned, some positivity. I like memes, so to make people laugh. Every now and then I'll say something, I'll get riled up about something on the news and I'll throw my opinion out there, but that's very few and far between, but I'm human. Yeah. And that's about it. And it's made me feel so much better. And I abstain from trying to engage in that nonsense because it doesn't serve. Not a single opinion that I know has changed from Facebook arguments.
Yeah. No,
I spent a lot of time doing that, and my opinion never changed, nor did I ever change anyone else's opinion.
Absolutely, and you can't.
I feel pretty influential.
But the big things you mentioned, and I know it's across the board for you, but you brought them up about parenting your triplets, right? Time management, energy, right? Yeah. The social media suck on your time and your energy. If you just know that and what you're losing, the opportunity cost for those, look it up if you don't know what opportunity cost is, but the opportunity cost of getting sucked in, and it's at your,
there's that quadrant. If like you were to draw like a quadrant on a piece of paper, like a big T or whatever you want to call it, you had the four quadrants, all that social media stuff is in the fourth quadrant. It's all time wasting. It's like potato chips of the mind. It's
absolutely
it's for downtime to relax, but it's designed to be addicting. And so many people are so caught up on it. And once you start to realize where your time is going, you start to realize like how much time you're spending on it. Boy, I'm definitely looking for ways to cut off the notifications and really minimize that, because it's keeping you from being happy and it's keeping you from achieving the more important things in life. So I've definitely scaled my social media down in that aspect, as far as just, consumption, trying to add more value, because it is a great tool and it's a great way to connect with people. Yeah. It's a double-edged sword.
Look, you can take your hammer and you can either go build something or you go throw holes in your wall. What do you want to do with it? Right? It's a tool. Absolutely. Technology is a tool. Yep. Use it appropriately. So wrapping up here. So, what if you had to explain to someone, what makes you successful, somebody you're mentoring, what would you tell them?
I think could make anyone. So here, I'm a prime example where I think that leadership can be cultivated. And all of these things that we talked about, like energy and influence and courage and confidence, all of these things can be developed if you have a growth mindset. The ability in yourself that you can learn. I always think about the Matrix when Neo's going through, he's getting all, like, oh, I know jujitsu. He's like learning all of these things. And just leaders are readers. And I've learned that. I feel that I'm a late bloomer, because very early in my life and even in my 20s, I felt not very confident. I felt squandered my time. I didn't have a handle on life. But by reading and engaging with people and having that growth mindset that, yes, I can learn something. I may not know the answer now, but I know that I can learn it, has really enabled me to be successful. Lean in on it, have coaches and mentors, get therapy to unpack these things, do the work that is required, have the discipline to do that work every day and be surrounded by the right people. and you will see success. Because as I look back at my life and like who I was younger and where I'm at now, it's a night and day difference. And I consider myself a late bloomer. So
Absolutely. That's awesome. I love that. So, hey, how can people find you?
you can find me on Facebook. You look up Jay Tiegs. I'm also on the internet. I got my website, jtiegs.com, JAYTIEGS. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm basically on all social media platforms. And I got a podcast. If you like, what Dale's doing here, we got an interview. Go check out Dale's interview. That will be dropping at the time of this 2 weeks from now, which is May. I don't even know what date it is. May of 2021. It should be episode number 18 or 19. But myself and Dale, we have an interview. So if you like this interview, go check out that interview because that one's pretty cool. And that's where you find me.
Awesome.
I've also got some stuff on YouTube as well.
Got some stuff on YouTube as well. So go look up Jay. Hey, you can never get enough of this stuff. Jay, thank you so much for making the time, coming on, man. It's awesome value here for everyone, man. I know someone's going to get something out of it. So thank you very much.
Thanks, brother. Appreciate it.
All right, we're going to do it again.
Sounds good.
All right, buddy.